Yo yo yo, salut tout le monde. Fait que je pense qu'on va être bon. Je vais couper la musique tout de suite. On va pouvoir. Je pense qu'il y a déjà quelqu'un qui commence. Je vais pas la couper, mais je vais la mettre comme en plus basse. Hein. Juste pour dire, on va pouvoir prompter ça ici. On est sur son NBC en live. ABC, ça commence. Fait qu'on va voir les deux à soir pour pouvoir réagir en même temps.
Just do it! Make your dreams come true!
I am a Democrat. Thank you, George. Mr. Vice President, every day, my
Ça,
wife
c'est
and I are in disbelief at
ABC,
the lack
ok.
of coordinated federal action on COVID-19. We know that your administration would follow the science. My question for you is two parts. First, looking backwards to when this country first became aware of COVID-19, what would following the science have meant in terms of actual policy? And then, looking forward, what would your administration do in terms of following the science with real concrete policies that haven't been done by the current administration?
Well, first of all, going back, the fact is that the president was informed how dangerous this virus was. And all the way back in the beginning of February, I argued that we should be keeping people in China. And we had set up in our administration a pandemic office within the White House. There were 44 people on the ground. I suggested we should be seeking, and I didn't hold public office. I was a former vice president. I suggested we, in fact, ask to have access to the source of the problem. And to the best of our knowledge, Trump never pushed that. All those 44 people came home, never got replaced. In addition to that, I pointed out that I thought in February, I did a piece for USA Today saying this is a serious problem. Trump denied it. He said it wasn't. We later learned that he knew full well how serious it was when he did an interview with Bob Woodward.
C'est ce qu'on appelle les town hall. Dans le fond, c'est que comme il n'y a pas eu de débat, on va vraiment parler de jours. Chacun des candidats a décidé de faire des town halls aux États-Unis. C'est quand il y a eu un candidat à la présidence va dans un amphithéâtre où il y a des gens qui vont voter avec un modérateur puis il répond dans le fond aux questions du public. Moi, à soir, mon but, ça va être de regarder, comme là, les deux ont décidé de ne pas être par ensemble, de faire séparer en même temps, à même heure sur des chaînes différentes. Je vais faire une question complète à chaque candidat puis je vais switcher à l'autre. Ça va être ça pour moi. Ah, il était stressé parce que c'est pas l'animateur, parce que c'est un voteur. Là, je comprends.
Before you go to the future, can I follow up on looking backward just a little bit? You did have an op-ed in January where you warned to the seriousness of the pandemic, but there's no record of you calling for social distancing, limited social gatherings, mandatory masks.
Not back then.
In January, February.
No, in January, February. No, that's correct. There wasn't. That came at the end of March, and then I laid out a detailed plan relative to school openings in June
Twitter
and
est
July.
down, hein?
And talked about, by that time, the science was becoming clearer and clearer of how this was spreading so rapidly. But the president kept denying that. If you notice, from March on, I stopped doing big meetings. I started wearing masks.
J'ai mis ça, dans le fond, dernier, quand j'ai fait un react au débat vice-présidentiel. Je me suis dit, comme j'utilise des feeds de YouTube, là, des NBC puis de ABC, je voulais juste être certain qu'il n'y ait pas de problème. Fait qu'au moins, ça ajoute juste un élément de plus à la vidéo. La dernière fois, j'avais aussi appliqué un filtre au niveau de la saturation des couleurs, mais je pense que c'était pas nécessaire. Sur YouTube, quand j'ai posté la vidéo sur demande du stream, ça a été comme numéro 1. Je ne me fais aucun strike, pas d'avertissement, pas de rien. Je me suis dit, ok, cette fois-ci, je ne mettrai pas la saturation, mais je vais laisser le masque. C'est juste plate qui s'applique à une seule personne à la fois. Donc, quand ils vont finir de répondre, je vais switcher à Trump.
Thirdly, what we didn't do is the president had an opportunity to open and allow schools and businesses to stay open if they got the kind of help they needed. So the Congress passed a couple $1 trillion worth of help, and what happened was most of that money, significant portion of that money, went to the very wealthiest corporations in the country, didn't get to the mom and pop stores. So you had 1 in 5, 1 in 6 minority businesses closing, many of them permanently, people being laid off. And then what happened was when the first tranche of the first round of money for unemployment, enhanced unemployment, went by. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. And to the best of my knowledge, and I mean this sincerely, I can't think, I've been around for a lot of presidents, and you know a lot of presidents in the crisis. I don't ever remember one never calling the House and Senate, Republicans, Democrats together.
Let's look forward a little bit. You said that you would lock down the economy only if the scientists said it was necessary.
On switch.
Positive. There was an outdoor reception.
Ça va être comme ça toute la
You see
soirée.
the pictures. There was an indoor reception. People were not wearing masks. My question to you is, at this point in the pandemic, knowing what we know, shouldn't you have known better? Shouldn't the White House know better than to hold an event like that?
Well, they do a lot of testing in the White House. They test everybody, including me, but they test everybody. And something happened. But as far as the mask is concerned, I'm good with masks. I'm okay with masks. I tell people wear masks. But just the other day, they came out with a statement that 85% of the people that wear masks catch it. So, you know,
They didn't say that. I know that study. That's
Bonne idée, je vais les activer.
That's what I saw. And regardless, but everybody's tested, and they're tested often. And I also knew that, hey, I'm president. I have to see people. I can't be in a basement. I can't be in a room. I can't be. I have to be out.
You can see
Ok,
people with the
tous les autres leaders du monde, comment ils font, genre. Je sais pas s'ils comprennent, là. Ça n'a pas de sens.
The governor of Virginia, he was known for a mask. If you look at Tom Tillis, a great guy, he always had a mask, and they caught it.
Well, there are pictures of Tom Tillis actually with one of Judge Barrett's kids not wearing a mask. But, you know, Chris Christie, he was part of your debate prep.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I believe at that event. He came out tonight. He was sick, very sick. He was in the hospital for about a week. He came out tonight and said, I was wrong not to wear a mask.
Well, I mean, he has to say that. I think it's great. He's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. And,
j'ai l'impression que ça va tellement plus être divertissant que Trump. Oh, man. Est-ce qu'on fait deux questions Trump et une question Biden? Ah, je sais pas. J'ai le goût d'écouter Trump quasiment tout le long. Fuck. Qu'est-ce que je fais?
Are the most incredible people, and they came up to me and they would hug me and they would touch me, and I'm not going to not let them do it.
Now, there was an event with the Gold Star families the day after the Supreme Court
event. A Gold
event.
Star event with the most incredible people you've ever seen, and I could have chosen not to talk to him or to keep everybody away. And you know what? And I don't think that's probably where it was caught, but maybe it was.
I was going to say, you bring it up. You brought it up yourself.
Hey, Jack, si tu veux te connecter sur le Discord, là, je suis dessus. Join n'importe quand, tu peux parler et dire de quoi. Là. Même n'importe qui aussi, je vais aller activer et changer les alertes. Là.
As the president, I have to be out there. I also know.
Well, there's no one that says you can't be out there, but it's just about wearing masks and having, for example, your rallies. Your rallies don't require masks.
I mean, let's see Kamala. She's got people now. People have it, and I'm not blaming her. I'm not saying, oh, she did a terrible thing. As president, I have to be out there. I can't be in a basement. I can't be locked in a very beautiful room someplace in the White House. And I want to see the Gold Star families, and I want to see everybody. And I also say to people all the time,
peut-être, je sais pas, sous-titres anglais. Non, c'est pas possible.
You're right. You want to be a leader, but you also are a leader and a setter.
Non, parce que c'est des sous-titres en... Je les prends sur le feed YouTube, il n'y a pas d'autre chose. Puis ça, c'est les sous-titres automatiques de YouTube, là, fait que c'est pour ça que c'est approximatif. Genre, comme c'est en live, là, j'ai pas... Puis je serais probablement pas capable de streamer si je prenais pas le feed de YouTube comme je fais là présentement. Là. C'est sûr que les sous-titres automatiques doivent absolument pas aider. And Canada. Oh, non.
I have things right here that will tell you exactly the opposite.
Me too.
So the UK is up 2,500%, because I knew you'd be doing this. I know you very well. The UK is up 2,500%. The EU is up 722%, and the United States is down 21%.
So we have, our deaths per capita is among the highest among industrialists.
Excess mortality, we're a winner on the excess mortality. And what we've done has been amazing, and we have done an amazing job. And it's rounding the corner, and we have the vaccines coming, and we have the therapies coming. And I'll tell you what, one thing, when I got it, I had a choice, do nothing or use some of the things that we're looking at, like in this case, Regeneron. Yeah. And Eli Lilly makes something that's supposed to be incredible. And I think that maybe I wouldn't be doing this discussion with you right now. We have therapies now and cures, maybe. You can use the word cure. But we have therapies that are
y en a trop qui ont été affectés. Je pense que c'était vrai, moi. Parce que faut qu'ils se rendent un plan. J'ai fini que c'était vrai.
90%, let's do the math, is still vulnerable.
Right.
There's been some talk, including from the White House lately, that perhaps it approves of what's called herd immunity. That's where you basically just let young people and everybody get sick. You try to protect the old people and those who are sick, and hopefully it gets into a certain level, and now we're all immune.
Imagine.
So let's just be clear about it. It also means more deaths. Do you support herd immunity as a strategy? Essentially, just let people get sick.
The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. We did the right thing.
C'est tellement une mauvaise.
We were expected to lose 2,200,000 people and maybe more than that. We're at 210,000 people. One person is too much. It should have never happened because of China. It happened because of China. And you have to get that and understand that. But it shouldn't have happened. But we were expected to lose. If you look at the original charts from original doctors who are respected by everybody, 2,200,000
That 2 million figure, though, is if you literally did nothing. The 2 million figure is if you did absolutely nothing, it would be 2 million. The question is, should the deaths be better than 200,000 when, relative to the rest of the world, we have a worse death rate?
I left North Carolina, which I
c'est bon, ça, ok. Pour moi, je vais pas mettre tes commentaires sur cette vidéo-là.
Because that governor has a lockdown where nobody but her husband can do anything. He can go voting and do whatever he wants, but nobody else can. The fact is we're winning all these cases because it's unconstitutional what they're doing. And I think they're doing it for political reasons. But the fact is the cure...
Hey, merci Colox pour le follow. Je vois que c'est Colox TV, fait que je sais pas si t'as toi-même une chaîne Twitch. Fait que si c'est le cas, j'irai la visiter à l'occasion puis dropper un follow aussi.
40,000 people. They have a lockdown like you've never seen. Now they're open. It's like a ghost town.
Effectivement, oui.
People are leaving New York by the thousands, and you're going to have a hard time ever building it up again. So that cure, that so-called cure that you talk about, it can't be worse than the problem. The problem is a bad problem.
We've got more questions on COVID, so let's drop it for now. We were supposed to, as mentioned, be watching you on a debate stage right now. We're not doing that, so let's clear up a few things from the last one. You were asked point blank to denounce white supremacy. In the moment, you didn't. You asked follow-up questions, who specifically. A couple of days later, on a different show, you denounced white supremacy. My question to you is,
you've done this to me and everybody.
It seem like
I denounce white supremacy, okay?
You did too.
I denounced white supremacy for years, but you always do it. You always start off with a question. You didn't ask Joe Biden whether or not he denounces Antifa. I watched him on the same basic show with Lester Holt, and he was asking questions like Biden was a child.
Well, so this is a little bit of a dodge.
Are you listening? I denounce white supremacy. Okay.
Do you feel, it feels sometimes you're hesitant to do so, like you wait a beat.
Here we go again. Every time, in fact, my people came, I'm sure they'll ask you the white supremacy question. I denounce white supremacy. Okay. And frankly, you want to know something? I denounce Antifa, and I denounce these people on the left that are burning down our cities that are run by Democrats.
Ça n'aurait pas dû être aussi dur que ça à faire.
Let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all say that is completely not true and disavow QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that.
Wow.
I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is a satanic run by the deep state.
I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left, and I know how violent they are, and how vicious they are, and I know how they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by
Republican
Republicans.
Senator Ben Sasse said, quote, QAnon is nuts, and real leaders call conspiracy theories conspiracy theories. Why not just say it's crazy and not true?
Oh my God,
I just don't know about QAnon.
You do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Let me ask you another thing.
Let's
Pourquoi il connaîtrait pas ça? Legit, pourquoi il connaîtrait pas ça?
You start off with white supremacy, I denounce it. You start off with something else. Let's go. Keep asking me these questions.
Ok, oui, Karen, je vais parler moins fort.
Let me just tell you, what I do hear about it is they are very strongly against pedophilia. And I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree with it.
But there's not a satanic pedophile cult being run by it. You don't know that? Okay.
No, I don't know
You
that.
just
Oh,
this
non.
week.
Do you know
Je
that?
peux pas croire ça.
This week you reached
Je peux pas le croire, là, ça n'a pas de sens.
Antifa, why aren't you asking me
Because you
about the
just-
radical left?
because you're
Why aren't
volunteering.
you asking Joe Biden questions about why doesn't he condemn Antifa? Why does he say it doesn't exist?
Because you're here
Antifa,
before me.
no, she's
Voyons donc, ça n'a pas de sens pour vrai, ça n'a juste pas de sens.
exists. They're vicious, they're violent, they kill people, and they're burning down our cities. And they happen to be radical left.
Just this week, you retweeted to your 87 million followers a conspiracy theory that Joe Biden orchestrated to have SEAL Team 6, the Navy SEAL Team 6, killed to cover up the fake death of Bin Laden. Now, why would you send a lie like that to your followers? You retweeted.
Je sais qu'on a passé le nombre de questions, mais genre... Ok, regarde, là je m'en fous un peu de ce moment-là. On va...
People can decide for themselves.
Right now, you got the opposite. You had last year, during this pandemic, you had the wealthiest
Complètement plate. Genre, le gars il est sur le bord de
billionaires
l'eau,
in the
man. C'est
nation.
fucking
They
beau
made
son setup. Puis lui, il est genre dans un... Il est dans un petit studio par rapport, hein.
He talks about a V-shaped recovery. It's a K-shaped
On va être fair, on va faire quand même
If
une
you're
petite
on the top,
alternance.
You're going to do very well. And the other thing and if you're in the bottom, or you're in the middle or the bottom, your income is coming down. You're not getting a raise. I don't know what you do. You may get a raise. Hope you're a billionaire. But all kidding aside, but it's about growing the economy. And George, the way out, the reason why I'm so optimistic about economic recovery, more than I've ever been, is we have these 4 crises happening all at once, and one helps the other. For example, we're going to invest a great deal of that money into infrastructure. And into a green infrastructure. We're going to put 500,000 charging stations on new highways we're building and old highways we're building. We're going to own the electric market. You know as well as I do from your days, in the old days, where the president spends about $600 billion a year on government contracts. Everything from making sure they have aircraft carriers to automobile fleets for in the United States. If you make and we can
merci Colox. Bonne soirée à toi.
International trade agreement made in America. If you actually insist that whatever that product is made in America, including the material that goes into the product, it's estimated we're going to create somewhere between another 4 and 6 million jobs just by doing that. But what's happening now? Under his trade policy, a lot of this is going overseas. You get a benefit from going overseas if you have much of it being made overseas. So if you send it overseas, you get a 10% tax increase on the product. If you make it in America and you bring it back, you get a 10% growth. If you bring back a company and you're going to open up an old facility, you get a 10% tax credit for all you invested. That actually works, George.
So there's not going to be any delay on the tax increases?
No, well, I got to get the votes. That's why, the one thing that I have this strange notion. We are a democracy. Some of my Republican friends and some of my Democratic friends even occasionally say, well, if you can't get the votes by executive order, you're going to do something. Things you can't do by executive order unless you're a dictator. We're a democracy. We need consensus.
Got to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I hope I answered your question.
Ah, bonne affaire, ça, qu'il me donne un break, je peux tout de suite aller à l'autre bord. Il n'y aura pas de break avec Trump, je pense.
I want it to be clean. I really feel we're going to win. but I want this to be clean. But it's sort of ironic that you and them talk about the peaceful transfer when I spent 3.5 years fighting off these maniacs, and now it turns out everything's there, that they were the ones that dealt with Russia. And it's too bad. But peaceful transfer, I absolutely want that. But ideally, I don't want to transfer because I want to win.
Yes, and I think that your words will probably reassure some folks. Let's get to our first voter. We've got Jacqueline Lugo. Now, she is, I told you this audience is truly split between y'all. You are leaning Biden. She voted for Clinton in 2016. She's registered as an independent. Jacqueline, what's your question to the president? And you hold the mic up close and take off your mic because it's hard to hear out here.
Good evening.
How are you?
Welcome to Miami.
Thank you very much. It's beautiful.
Mr. President, if you knew COVID-19, as you told Bob Woodward in February...
As what?
As you told Bob Woodward in February, was airborne and deadlier than the flu, why did you only put in place a travel ban from China and not put in place other measures mitigating the spread of COVID-19, potentially saving tens of thousands of American lives?
Well, I did put it in very early, as you know. Joe Biden was 2 months behind me, and he called me xenophobic and racist and everything else.
Ouais, pour le travel ban, ça c'est complètement vrai.
I was 100% right. I also put it on Europe very early because I saw there was a lot of infection in Europe.
Mais c'est pas la question.
And it's sort of an amazing question, and I appreciate the question and respect the question, but the news doesn't get out the right answer because I put on a travel ban far earlier than Dr. Fauci thought it was necessary, who I like, far earlier than the scientists. I was actually the only one that wanted to put it on, and I did it actually against the advice of a lot of people, including Nancy Pelosi, who had no clue what she was doing.
Mais c'est vrai, il a pas mis le travel ban pour les bonnes raisons, genre. Il a mis le travel ban complètement pour le nationalisme anti-chinois, genre.
Joe Biden and others said, this is ridiculous. You don't do that. Well, Dr. Fauci said I saved thousands and thousands of lives.
Did you?
I was early. I was extremely early when I put on the travel ban.
Can I ask you, did your national security advisor on January 28th in the Oval Office warn you that this would be the greatest national security risk of your administration? He didn't say it, or you don't remember?
I read it someplace. Maybe Woodward said it or something. But no, he did not say that. But I knew it was a big threat. At the same time, I don't want to panic this country. I don't want to go out and say everybody's going to die. Everybody's
Isn't there a middle ground? You don't have to mislead, but you can...
No, there's not a middle ground. You have to be safe, you have to be vigilant, and you have to be smart.
You're going to like this next couple of voters. It's a mom and a daughter.
Good.
Mom, Barbara, voted for you in 2016. She's leaning to vote for you again. Now, her daughter was too young to vote last time. She's going to vote for her first time in a presidential campaign, and she is leaning Biden. So imagine the dinner table at their house, okay? So, Barbara, why don't you go first and ask your question?
Bienvenido a Miami.
Thank you.
Mr. Trump, as a frontline ER doctor working through the coronavirus pandemic,
right.
I know firsthand, and I've seen that many hospitals throughout the United States are suffering financial hardships. These economic effects are trickling down to the frontline workers.
Right.
We are being, across the country, frontline workers are being fired, they're being furloughed, our salaries are being cut. And this is also happening in other economic sectors as well, including the travel industry and hospitality.
Right.
Je reviens dans 2 secondes. 2 secondes.
How are you going to get the United States back on track, both in terms of the economy and the pandemic?
So it's happening. We just set a record, 11.4 million jobs. We are going to have a phenomenal third quarter, which will be announced on November 1st, just prior to the big November 3rd day, where I think you're going to see a red wave. But we're going to have a tremendous announcement, I believe. I mean, we're going to find out. But GDP is going through the roof. Jobs, real estate, houses, so many things are happening. So people were saying we're going to have a 42% unemployment. Look, this was a thing that came into our country, and it happened more than 100 years ago, and it happened now. They were talking about a 42% unemployment rate.
Who was talking about that?
I heard 20% at 7.8% unemployment, and people can't even believe it. Our economy is going to be next year, if we don't have somebody that raises taxes and quadruples taxes, which they want to do and kills everything, our economy is going to be phenomenal next year. We're going to have a phenomenal, and I'll tell you, Savannah, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country last year, including the state of Florida, where we are now, and Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, and Ohio, every place. We had the greatest economy we ever had. We had to close it down. We saved 2 million lives. We're opening it up. We have a V shape, and it's coming back. It's coming back very fast. One other thing, we really helped the hospitals. We've sent billions and billions of dollars to the hospitals. In addition, hundreds of millions of
Il parle de V shape, puis Biden parle de K-shape, mais j'arrive pas à comprendre c'est quoi la différence. Un coq juste sur le côté, c'est la même chose. J'arrive pas à comprendre c'est quoi un K-shape.
We're now making thousands of ventilators a month, and we have all we can use. We're sending them all over the world because the world needs them. So they've worked very hard and really very, very effectively. Thank you. Great question.
Let's talk to Isabella. Put the mic close to your mouth. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. President, my parents are, as you heard, both frontline healthcare workers,
tellement de l'air
and I've seen the
beaucoup trop
physical and
engagé.
the mental tolls that this pandemic has taken on them firsthand, as well as the exacerbation of coronavirus due to Americans who are not wearing masks or participating in social distancing. After contracting COVID-19 yourself, has your opinion changed on the importance of mask wearing?
No, because I was okay with the masks. I was good with it, but I've heard many different stories on masks. I mean, I had, being president, you have people, they bring meals, they bring this, and I had an instance recently where a very wonderful person is bringing me a meal, and he's playing with his mask, and he's touching his mask all over the place, and then he's bringing a plate in, and I'm saying, well, I don't know if that's so good. I mean, the good news, I didn't eat it, okay? I decided not to eat it. This was a month ago, but look, you have on the masks, you have two stories. You have a story where they want, a story where they don't want. I am all for it.
I don't get that because it's just all of your public health officials, your administration, they're in unison about this. No. They're all in unison about it. The University of Washington, which is they have a model that your coronavirus task force relies on, says that if everyone wore a mask, you could cut expected deaths in half.
And then 60,000
lives. Well, what does that mean?
Scott Atkins, if you look at Scott, Dr. Scott, he's from great guy, Stanford. He will tell you
he's
that
not an infectious disease expert.
Oh, I don't know. Look, he's an expert. He's one of the great experts of the world.
But I don't get it because you have so much power and influence as president. You could go to your...
C'est quoi ça? Ah, moi, je suis un expert en moteur de char, fait que je peux te donner mes expertises sur le coronavirus.
University of Washington, and you have other places say different things. You have a lot of... Hey, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask, right?
At first, but then everybody agreed.
No, I don't know that he changed his mind. But then you have a report coming out 2 days ago that 85% of the people wearing masks...
I looked at that report. It's not about mask wearing. It was neutral.
What? Oh, God.
We're on the same side. I say wear the mask. I'm fine with it. I have no problem. We're on the same side.
Let's take a break. We're going to get more questions right after this.
Oh, man. 85% des gens qui portent un masque. Oh, man, je peux pas croire qu'il a vraiment dit ça. What the heck? C'est quoi ça? Voyons.
What your economic background is to get a down payment. So we're going to guarantee first-term home buyers a $15,000 down payment for first-term home buyers. In addition to that, what all the studies now show, and I've been arguing this for a long time, is young black entrepreneurs are just as successful as white entrepreneurs or anyone else given a shot. But you can't get the money. Where do you go to get the startup money? So what President Obama and I did, we had a program where we took $1.5 billion and we invested it in all the SBAs around the country, in the state SBAs, Small Business Associations, and that generated $30 billion came off the sideline, because if you have a guarantee of $200,000 for your
le filtre de la misère à détecter, genre...
You're going to be able to attract, if it's government money as a guarantee, you'll be able to attract another $100,000. It generated $30 billion. Well, I'm changing that program, and I'll get this done without much trouble, I believe, in the Congress, from $1.5 billion to $30 billion to $30 billion. That'll take $300 billion off the sideline and grow, because And for example, if you, in fact, and I were the same age, and we split our differences, and we were the same age, and we went to the same builder to buy us each the same home. But my home was in a white neighborhood on one side of a highway, and yours is in a black neighborhood. Same exact home. Your home will start off being valued 29% less than my home. Yet your insurance for that home will be higher. You'll be taxed more for it. We've got to end this. That's what got me involved in politics in the first place, a thing called redlining. We can change so much, that we can do so much to change the circumstances to give people a real opportunity.
Cedric, did you hear what you did?
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, do you hear what you needed to hear?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot more if you're going to hang around afterwards, I'll tell you more.
Okay.
Let's get
No, but I really mean it. It is the key. Look,
mad.
this is the way every other... How do most... Like my dad, he lost his job up in Scranton. And it took him 3 years to be able to move down to Delaware, to Claymont, Delaware, steel town, and send us home to our grandpop to live with him. We finally got back. We lived in apartments, became 6 and 8 housing much later. It wasn't. It was just normal apartments. But it took him 5 years to be able to buy a home. Well, we bought a 3-bedroom home with 4 kids and a grandpop living with us, but it accumulated wealth. You build up wealth. That's how middle-class folks make it. They build up wealth. Then he was able to borrow a little against that to be able to help us get to school, those kinds of things. It's about accumulating wealth. And you're behind an 8 ball. The vast majority of people of color are behind an 8 ball. And it's the same way what's going on now with all this money that's been voted. What's happened? You go to the bank if you're a black businessman, and the president fired the only inspector general to oversee all this help coming from the Congress. And what happens? You go in and they say, do you have an account here? No. Do you have a credit card with this? No. Have you borrowed from us before? No. We bail these suckers out. They're not liable for any of the money, but they still won't lend it. They still won't lend it to you. We got to change that. It's about accumulating wealth.
Want to get another question in here from Angelica Politaros? No, not at all. Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania, Republican who voted for President Trump last time.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Vice President Biden. Thanks to you. What's your view on the crime bill that you wrote in 1994, which showed prejudice against minorities? Where do you stand today on that?
Well, first of all, things have changed drastically. That crime bill, when it voted, the Black Caucus voted for it. Every black mayor supported it across the board. And it didn't. The crime bill itself did not have mandatory sentences except for 2 things. But it had 3 strikes and you're out, which I voted against in the crime bill. But it had a lot of other things in it that turned out to be both bad and good. I wrote the Violence Against Women Act. That was part of it. The assault weapons ban and other things that were good. What I was against was giving states more money for prison systems that they could build, state prison systems. And you have 93 out of every 100 people in jail now is in a state prison, not in a federal prison, because they built more prisons. I also wrote into that bill a thing called drug courts. I don't believe anybody should be going to jail for drug use. They should be going into mandatory rehabilitation. We should be building rehab centers to have these people housed. We should we should decriminalize marijuana, wipe out the record so you can actually say in honesty, you ever been arrested for anything? You can say no, because we're going to pass a law saying there is no background that you have to reveal relative to the use of marijuana. And so there's a lot of things, but in addition to that, we got to change the system. I joined.
Quasiment rendu la moitié des États aux États-Unis qui ont légalisé / décriminalisé le cannabis. C'est assez une grosse progression là, depuis que le Colorado a parti de balle.
In the meantime, an awful lot of people were jailed for minor drug crimes after the
Exactly right.
Was it a mistake to support it?
Yes, it was. But here's where the mistake came. The mistake came in terms of what the states did locally. What we did federally, we said it was, and you remember, George, it was all about the same time for the same crime. What I had done as chairman of the
le fédéral était correct, c'est
10 circuit courts
les États qui ont
took
fucké.
some really brilliant lawyers working for me in judiciary. We did a study. And we determined what happens if, for the first, second, third offense, for any crime in the criminal justice system, at the federal level, if you're a black man, it's the first time you commit a robbery. How long would you go to jail on average? If you're a white man, how long? Black man would go to jail on average 13 years. White man, 2 years. I go down the list of every single crime. So we set up a sentencing commission. We didn't set the time. Every single solitary maximum was reduced in there. But what happened was it became the same time for the same crime. So it said you have to serve between 1 and 3 years. It ended up becoming much lower. Black folks went to jail a lot less than they would have before, but it was a mistake.
Let me ask another follow-up on the crime bill. It also funded 100,000 police back in 1994. You've often said that more cops clearly mean less crime. Do you still believe that?
Yes, if in fact they're involved in community policing, not jump squads. For example, when we had community policing from the mid-90s on till Bush got elected, what happened? Violent crime actually went down precipitously. Remember the significant rise in violent crime that was occurring in the late 80s into the 90s. It went down, and fewer African Americans were arrested because you had the requirement. The cops didn't like it. They didn't like the...
Il y a vraiment de la misère, le filtre sur Biden, c'est drôle.
In the vehicle, they had to get out of their cars. They had to introduce themselves to who owned the local liquor store, who owned the local grocery store, who was the woman on the corner. And what they would do, George, they'd actually go and give people their phone numbers. A cop would give the phone number. So if Nellie Smith was on the second floor where drug deals took place and things happened
je viens de comprendre ce que tu veux dire.
Her apartment, she could call and say, it's Millie, and there's something going on here.
Mais en fait, je pense pas qu'il se mélange, c'est juste qu'il c'est un beg. Il est juste beg. C'est ça le problème, c'est ça sa situation.
So it actually started to come down. What happened? They eliminated the funding for community policing. Community policing doesn't mean more people coming in up-armored Humvees and swarming like that. When they did,
parce que j'ai l'impression que live il fait comme du cramming d'informations. Genre il pose une question, puis là il est comme j'ai toutes mes feuilles de prête. Puis il fait juste tout dire ce qu'il a à dire. Ah ben c'est ça, c'est ça.
It was as high as 22%.
Right now we have a systemic problem. How do you get the kind of policing, prevent the kind of...
Ok, là on a écouté déjà sa réponse, on va aller sur l'autre bord.
We should have stimulus. This was not our people's fault. This was China's fault. And she's penalizing our people. I'm ready to sign a big, beautiful stimulus. You saw the other day, I say go big or go home, right?
That's what
I want it to be big. I want it to be bold. I want the money to go directly to the people.
Senate Republicans with you? They're going to go big? Their big old number?
They'll go. They're going to be very
so
happy.
far they have not said they would.
Because I haven't asked them to, because I can't get through Nancy Pelosi.
Okay.
If Nancy Pelosi
Mais non, le Sénat dit non. Fait que même si t'arrives à porter au Congrès, le Sénat va dire non.
If we agree to something, the Republicans will agree to it.
Our next question comes from, this is interesting. She voted for Clinton in 2016, but recently changed her registration from Democrat to Independent. She says she's truly undecided. Her name's Becky Lightman. Hello, Becky. What's your question?
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you. So, corporate tax rates are a hot button issue, and you have cut corporate tax rates, and your opponent Joe Biden is planning to raise them.
Right.
A lot of Americans think that corporations don't pay their share of taxes and want to see those tax rates increase. What do you say to those Americans to maybe tell them why you want the corporate tax rate lower and why that helps them?
It's a great question. We've created more jobs than this country has ever created.
M'excuse.
160 million jobs. We were never even close to that number. We were just hitting 160 million jobs. Companies are pouring into our nation because of the tax rate. And if Biden comes in and raises taxes on everybody, including middle income taxes, which he wants to do, you will blow this thing and you'll end up with a depression, the likes of which you've never had. That's what's going to happen. We have something that's really good. The reason we're coming back so strong is because we built a very strong foundation. Companies are moving in. Car companies are moving into Michigan, into Ohio, into South Carolina, and North Carolina just today. So what's happening is they're coming in because we reduced the taxes. Our taxes, our corporate taxes, were the highest in the world,
Biden.
and now they're among
Donc,
the lower
il pose des questions à date plus calmement à Biden que le monde contre Trump. J'ai la misère avec la caméra. M'excuse.
Middle income tax package. So if we get in, we're going to do the middle income tax package. But it's a great question. And if he comes along and raises rates, all those companies that are coming in, they will leave the U.S. so fast your head will spin. We can't let that happen.
On the subject of taxes, as you know, the New York Times has obtained, it says, years of your tax returns. Among other things, it says that you have debts of approximately $421 million that you have personally guaranteed and that will come due in the next 4 years. The question is, on behalf of voters, who do you owe $421 million
first
to?
Let me answer. What they did is illegal, number one. Also, the numbers are all wrong with the numbers they released. And just so you understand, when you have a lot of real estate, I have real estate, you know a lot of it, okay? Right down the road, Doral. Big stuff, great stuff. when I decided to run, I'm very under-levered, fortunately, but I'm very under-levered. I have a very, very small percentage of debt compared, in fact, some of it I did as favors to institutions that wanted to loan me money. $400 million compared to the assets that I have.
Moi aussi, j'ai fait une faveur à la banque là, quand je voulais acheter ma maison. J'avais fait la faveur de leur permettre de me prêter de l'argent.
America building in San Francisco. I don't love what's happening to San Francisco.
Well, do I hear you right? It sounds like you're saying $400 million isn't that much.
Biggest office buildings.
But are you confirming that yes, you do owe some $400 million?
What I'm saying is that it's a tiny percentage of my net worth.
That sounds like yes.
And you'll see that soon because we're doing things, you know. We've given, I think it's 108 or 112 pages of financial details elections, and you know we have to file as the president, as any politician, you have to file. Nobody ever looks at that. When they do, they see how incredible the company is, but more importantly, they see where this debt is. No, I don't owe Russia money. I owe a very, very small, it's called mortgages. Yeah. People have a house, they put a mortgage.
Any foreign bank, any foreign entity?
Not that I know of, but I will probably, because it's so easy to solve, and if you'd like to do, I will let you know who I owe whatever small amount of money. I want to say two things. Number one, it's a very small amount of money. Number two, it's very straight. It's very
small.
But it's a tiny percentage of the worth. Did you ever hear the expression underlevered?
Yeah.
I am extremely underlevered.
Well, here's the thing. You could clear this up tonight by just releasing your tax returns yourself. I mean, that's what I understand. I think people are just wondering.
As you know, you're the only. It turned out that I am underwritten.
But the IRS says
excuse me. No, but you.
The IRS says that doesn't stop you from releasing.
You accused me of not being underwritten previously, and so did other people at NBC. And I am underwritten. So that was solved. That's good. I am underwritten. No person in their right mind would release prior to working out the deal with the IRS. And I'll go a step further. I'm treated very badly by the IRS. They treat me very, very badly. You have people in there from previous administrations. They treat me very badly. But we're under audit. It's very routine in many ways, but we're under audit. They like to change the game, change the rules, do everything. You saw what they did with the Tea Party people. You saw what they did with the religious group.
But to be clear, there is no law or rule that prohibits you from releasing your tax returns.
Except common sense and intelligence and having lawyers that say, because I would love to release them, and as soon as we come to a conclusion, I will release them, and very gladly. But if you go to elections, and if you take a look, you'll see 112, I think it's 112. It talks about the income, which is rather massive. It talks about all of the properties.
Il a pratiquement confirmé le 400 millions d'euros.
You can never learn more, but you know what happened? People went there, all the reporters went. There was like a feeding frenzy. This was originally when I filed it. And I filed it every year. I update it every year. My son is here. They run the company. I don't run the company.
It also says that you paid $750 in taxes in the year you were elected. Is that true or not?
That's a statutory number. It's a statutory.
But is that true?
I think it's a filing number. You pay $750. It's a filing fee.
Most people here probably pay more.
No, I don't know. I can tell you this. If they have my tax returns, as you know, they have to go to jail. It's illegal. But their numbers were wrong. But let me tell you what else. I don't owe money to any of these sinister people. This has been going on for years now. Russia. It turned out to be a hoax. And it turned out to be that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats were dealing with Russia, not me. It's a whole hoax. So I would not mind at all saying who it is, but it's a very small. When you look at vast properties like I have, and they're big and they're beautiful and they're well located, when you look at that, the amount of money, $400 million, is a peanut. It's extremely underlevered. And it's levered with normal banks. Not a big deal.
All right, let's take a break. We'll get more voter questions right after this.
Wow, mais yo, pour vrai, il confirme, là. Je peux pas croire, là. C'est confirmé. Là.
From the Constitution Center in Philadelphia.
Je sais pas si t'étais là tantôt, mais il avait embarqué avec Antifa aussi. Là. Fait que si t'es dans ton bingo, tu peux mettre une petite pinouche dessus. Là.
George, Mr. Vice President.
Hey, Nathan.
Our country's first Supreme Court gave its first rulings just 2 blocks from here, from 1791 to 1800. And it's become more polarized since then. Merrick Garland didn't get a hearing for all of 2016, and Amy Coney Barrett's being pushed through at the last minute, even though millions have already voted. So what do you think about ideas from people like Pete Buttigieg and others to put in place safeguards that will help ensure more long-term balance and stability? And what do you say to LGBTQ Americans and others who are very worried right now about erosions of their rights and our democracy as a whole?
Well, let me start the last point, work my way back. I think there's great reason to be concerned. I was on the road most of the time during these hearings, so I didn't hear many of them. I just got the recaps when I'd get in late at night.
By the way, à soir, j'essaie un nouveau setup pour le micro, des settings différents dans VoiceMeter, puis j'ai aussi ajouté un affaire automatique de réduction du bruit dans le micro dans OBS 26 ils l'ont inclus. Fait qu'il va juste me dire si c'est un peu fucked up, si le son est épais ou moins bon par rapport au micro. Il m'a l'air plus silencieux, il a l'air de moins prendre de son par rapport, mais on verra là.
Great reason to be concerned for the LGBT community, something I fought very hard for a long time to make sure there's equality across the board. Number two, I think that also healthcare overall is very much in jeopardy as a consequence of the president's going to go directly after this election directly to the Supreme Court within a month to try to get Obamacare wiped out after 10 million people have already lost their insurance from their employer and wants to take 20 million people out.
C'est pas une amélioration dans la qualité, c'est plus dans le bruit. Sinon, je tape pas sur mon clavier puis je fais pas de souris. Fait que c'est sûr que la réduction du bruit, quand il y en a déjà pas de bruit, ça change pas grand-chose. Mais au moins, ça allait pas comme dégradé, fait que tant mieux.
And the separation of powers. The Constitution implies that the way the people have a right to determine who's going to be on the court is how they vote for their senators and their president. We seek the advice and consent of the Senate and the
president's president for all 4 years, isn't he?
No, he is. But once an election begins, by implication, it is inconsistent with the constitutional principles, in my view. You get disagreement among scholars on this. But I believe it's inconsistent when millions of people already voted to put someone on the court. I think it should have been held until this election is over. See what the makeup of the Senate is going to be. If the president wins this election, he should be able to.
How about that question of expanding the court? Here's what you said exactly 1 year ago tonight at a Democratic debate. You said, I would not get into court packing. I would not pack the court. That's not what you're saying now. Is the nomination of Judge Barrett reason enough to rethink your position?
What is the nomination? What I wanted to do, George, if I had answered the question directly, then all the focus would be on what's Biden going to do if he wins, instead of on, is it appropriate what is going on now? And it should stay. This is the thing that the president loves to do. Always take our eye
off the ball. Si les sénateurs républicains live font du pas correct, on va faire de quoi de pas correct par exemple.
That there are at least 4 or 5 options that are available to determine whether or not you can change the way in which the court lifetime appointment takes place, consistent, arguably, with the Constitution. I have not been a fan of court packing because I think it just generates what will happen. Whoever wins, it just keeps moving in a way that is inconsistent with what is going to be manageable.
So you're still not a fan?
Well, I'm not a fan. I didn't say it depends on how this turns out. Not how he wins, but how it's handled. How it's handled. But there's a number of things that are going to be coming up, and there's going to be a lot of discussion about other alternatives as well.
What does that mean, how it's handled? How will that determine for
example, there's actually real live debate on the floor. If people are really going to be able to have a time to go through this, I don't know anybody who's gone on the floor and that's been a controversial justice in terms of fundamentally altering the makeup of the court that's gone through in a day kind of thing. I mean, it depends on how much they rush this. And you think about it, George. Here you got a lot of people not being able to pay their mortgage, not being able to put food on the table, not being able to keep their business open, not being able to do anything to deal with what's going on in terms of the economy as a consequence of COVID, and they have no time to deal with that. But they have time to rush this through.
Well, right now it looks like they're going to vote on Halloween. So if they vote on it before the election, you are open to expanding the court?
I'm open to considering what happens from that point on.
You said so many times during the campaign, all through the course of your career, it's important to level.
Ok, ça c'est la question complète. Ça voulait absolument rien dire.
Morning show, and you were asked whether President Obama should nominate a Supreme Court Justice Merrick Garland, and you said, I think the Senate should wait until the next president and let the president pick. Now, that was 8 months before the election. This is 3 weeks before the election.
I have a lot of respect, by the way.
So you have changed your position on this.
I have a lot of respect for Judge Garland, I want to tell you that. But I'll tell you, the whole ball game changed when I saw the way they treated Justice Kavanaugh. I have never seen any human being, and I'm not just talking about Supreme Court, I have never seen a human being treated so badly with false accusations and everything else. I have never seen anything like it. And you know what? The truth is, Savannah, like it or not, the ball game changed a lot. There has never been anybody treated so badly as now Justice Kavanaugh.
You've mentioned that you would like to see Amy Coney Barrett confirmed to the Supreme Court in case any challenges come up in connection with the election. Yeah. Do you expect her to rule for you?
I think she'll have to make that decision. I don't think she has any conflict at all. You know, a Supreme Court judge does not have, I mean, they can make their own decision. And they actually have additional power to make that decision. It would be totally up to her. I would think that she would be able to rule either for me or against me. I don't see any conflict whatsoever. We have an election coming up. I think it's the most important election in the history of our country.
Non, pas sûr.
Any chance, and it probably won't, and I hope it doesn't ever get to the Supreme Court. But if it did, I would think that she would rule one way or the other. I would think so.
But for you think she would rule for you?
I have no idea.
I mean, of course she'll rule one way or the other, but...
Believe it or not, I never asked her about it. I never talked about it. I didn't talk about any of the obvious things.
C'est sûr qu'il n'a pas pu en parler. C'est impossible qu'il en a parlé. Il fallait que ça soit bien plus under the table.
People and people that do this for a living, they say it's better not to talk. So I talked to her about life. I talked to her about the fact, would you like to do this? Are you willing to do this? Because it's a tremendous burden. The answer was yes. She's unbelievably well qualified, but I never spoke to her about these various questions.
Let's get our next voter. She's leaning to you, Mr. President. She voted for you in 2016. She is a registered Republican. Her name is Mariah Green.
Elle est pas juste ligne, là, dire.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President. I'm honored to be with you here tonight, sir, so thank you. I'm a pro-life millennial, and my question for you today is, if Roe v. Wade is ultimately overturned in the future, what protections would be put in place or kept for where the mother's life is in jeopardy in relation to high-risk pregnancies?
Well, again, I'm not ruling on this, and Roe v. Wade is something that a lot of people would say, obviously you're going to speak to somebody. I also, two other great justices, Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh, I never spoke to them about Roe v. Wade. I never spoke to them about election laws. I never spoke to them about anything. And I've done the right thing from a moral standpoint. I don't even know from a legal standpoint, but it was the right thing. I think, depending on what happens with Roe v. Wade, I think that perhaps it could get sent down to the states, and the states would decide. I also think perhaps nothing will happen. I have not talked to her about it. I think it would be inappropriate to talk to her about it.
C'est pas la question. C'est pas la question. Yo, c'est pas la question.
What is your preference? Because it agreed, that's not something you should talk to the judge about. But would you like to see Roe versus Wade overturned?
I would like to see a brilliant jurist, a brilliant person who has done this in great depth and has actually skirted this issue for a long time, make a decision. And that's why I chose her. I think that she's going to make a great decision. I did not tell her what decision to make, and I think it would be inappropriate to say right now, because I don't want to do anything to influence her. I want her to get approved, and then I want her to go by the law, and I know she's going to make a great decision for our country.
You running as a pro-life Republican, most pro-life Republicans would like to see Roe v. Wade overturned and abortion banned.
Many of them would. Perhaps most of them would. I am telling you, I don't want to do anything to influence anything right now. I don't want to go out tomorrow and say, oh, he's trying to give her a signal, because I didn't speak to her about it. I've done the right thing.
Il n'y a pas besoin de donner un signal autre que la
you
nommer.
Find out perhaps, or you might not find out. I mean, it may never get there. It may never get there. We'll see what happens.
All right, we have another question. This is Cindy Velez. She is undecided. She says she's leaning to Biden, and she did vote for Clinton in 2016. She's registered as a Democrat. Hi, Cindy. What's your question?
Good evening, Savannah. Good evening, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
As the mother of a young male of color, I have raised him to respect authority, not only because it's the right thing to do, but also out of fear that he may face profiling or be considered a criminal. As an educator, I've also had similar conversations with my high school students. Mr. President, what will you and your administration do to better prepare our law enforcement officers to work in collaboration with the communities that they serve and also to protect the lives of innocent Black and Latinos from police brutality and injustice?
Right, I totally understand the question, and I saw everything that you saw over the summer, and it was a terrible thing to watch. We were very strongly, we have a senator named Tim Scott from South Carolina. He came up with a bill that should have been approved. It was great. It was a bill that was strong in terms of law enforcement and strong in terms of enforcing the proper thing and doing the proper thing by law enforcement. And the Democrats just wouldn't go for it. They wouldn't go for it at all. And I don't know why, because it was a really
cette madame-là ici, là.
Say this.
Man, I guess.
Some people don't like it when I say it, but a lot of people agree. I have done more for the African American community than any president, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, historically black colleges and universities. I got them funded. They were on a year-to-year basis. They could have been put out of business. As soon as our country had a little bad year, they would have said, I'm sorry, we're not going to fund you. I got them 10-year funding and financing, and more than they even asked for. I became very friendly with a lot of the heads. But we've done more, and of course, opportunity zones. But criminal justice reform, everybody said it could not be done. President Obama and Biden never even tried to do it. They never even tried.
Je pense vraiment qu'il s'est fait dire de pas trop parler d'antifa.
I'll say it loud, and I'm very proud of it.
Il aurait dû trouver un moyen d'en parler.
A great relationship because of what I've done with the African American community. I'm very proud of it.
Let's go to our next question. We have Paulette Dale. She leans slightly to Biden. She voted for Clinton in 2016. She's registered as a Republican. Paulette, what's your question?
Oh, wow, okay.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
I have to say, you have a great smile.
Thank you.
Okay. So, he does. You're so handsome when you smile. As the daughter of immigrants to the United States who fled Eastern Europe due to religious persecution, the United States immigration policies are very personal for me.
Right.
Surveys show that most Americans and the majority of Republicans support the Dreamers program. So my question for you, Mr. President, is if you are elected to a second term, do you expect to pursue your previous efforts to cut the DACA program?
Yeah.
Why or why not?
And the DACA
hey, Ali Bowling.
Understand that, and you understand it better than anybody.
Are you French-speaking or English-speaking person?
By the way, originally?
I'm just not sure, so I'm just gonna switch up for English for you if you want to stay here.
So, we are going to take care of DACA. We're going to take care of Dreamer. It's working right now.
All right, cool.
We're negotiating different aspects
most of my viewers are French, but
law.
the majority of them speaks also English, so I'm just going to switch full on English for you. Friends with Bangaroo, cool.
Working very closely with us. We have the strongest border we've ever had. We want people to come into
After this question, I'm going to switch off to Biden.
But we are working very hard on the DACA program, and you will be, I think, very happy over the course of the next year.
Thank you.
Because I feel the same way as you do about it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, in point of fact, the DACA program, there are, under your administration, no new applicants are allowed. And in fact, the DACA recipients now have to renew every year as opposed to every 2 years. So in fact, the DACA program has been curtailed by your administration.
Well, what happened is because of the pandemic, much changed on the immigration front. Mexico is heavily infected, as you know, and we've made it very, very difficult to come in because of the pandemic and other reasons, and crime. So we have a very strong border right now, and we have to keep it that way. But we want people to come into our country, but they have to come in through a merit system, and they have to come in legally. And people are very, very happy with it. You haven't heard any complaints about that. What happened
there's ads on ABC News, so I'm going to stay off with Trump then.
You have been promising this immigration bill since, well, at least July, when you told my colleague on Telemundo it was coming, but nothing's come yet.
It's very happy. The fact is, We got rid of catch and release, which is a disaster. You know, you catch somebody, they could be a murderer, they could be a rapist, and we're supposed to release them into our country. These are the laws that I inherited. We ended that program. Now, I think you're going to see something very, very good. The whole immigration, if you look at what's going on, people used to pour into our country, and especially during the pandemic, I think even you, Savannah, will be very impressed.
Yeah, pour in from Mexico, because no one is coming from Canada.
There are some who love you, some of them are sitting right around here, and some who will never vote for you. But there are people in the middle. There are people who aren't sure.
That's right.
There are people who want to know why they should give you a second
What's up with that guy? What's up with him?
Second term. 30 seconds, what would you say to them?
Because they've done a great job. We have the strongest economy in the world. We closed it up. We are coming around the corner. The vaccines are coming out soon.
I can't prevent myself from laughing at him.
We are at a level with jobs like we've never been before.
I'm really trying hard to be impartial, but
we've rebuilt our borders. We had no borders.
Clearly
we had
not.
nothing. We've rebuilt so much. We've given you the greatest tax cut in the history of our country, greatest regulation cut, equally as important. And we created new levels of jobs that nobody thought was possible. And next year is going to be better than ever before.
I got to leave it there. I got a wrap from the control room. Mr. President, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to the voters.
Oh, it's over.
That concludes our town hall. We do want to thank the president again, as well as our
Oh yeah, I forgot it was only 1 hour town hall.
Trump and Joe Biden are scheduled to meet in.
Okay, ciao, bye.
In a 2012 report of the University of Pittsburgh's Institute of Politics, fracking was discussed and its possible implications for the waterways from the Commonwealth to the Gulf. Fracking has made the population sick and killed wildlife in southwest Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and small business development centers have already begun to transition.
He and Kamala Harris were very anti-fracking during the Democrats' primaries, if I recall correctly, and they scratched that from the program, and now they don't want to act on that.
I make it clear, I do not propose banning fracking.
Yeah,
I think you have to make sure that fracking is in fact not emitting methane or polluting the well or dealing with what can be small earthquakes and how they're drilling. So it has to be managed very, very well, number one. Number two, what we have to do is the future rests in renewable energy. The single fastest growing energy source in the world right now, because
you definitely get that different vibe from these two town halls. Much more confrontation on the NBC one with Trump, whereas on ABC with Biden, it's much more calm. Because no one is angry at Biden. Like, what did he do really?
Great promise. And it's also the fastest growing.
It's Trump that generating that much
and so there are a number of things that I would do immediately.
decision in the society.
There are well over 100,000 wells that are left uncapped in the region. We could hire 128,000 of these people who are working in the industry to cap these wells and get a good salary doing it now, number one. Number two, we should be moving toward finding the new technologies.
Damn, with this little resolution, Biden looks so much like an old Will Ferrell.
The transition we moved from to a net zero emission of carbon that we're still
and getting strong Will Ferrell vibes now.
Right,
damn, I kept unseen it.
Some gas to be able to, if we can carbon capture. And I think we're going to be able to move in a direction where by the year 2035, we'll be able to have net zero emissions of carbon from the creation of energy creation. That so we can move it by dealing with those. And every time we talk about global warming or the environment, the president thinks it's it's a joke, and I think it's jobs. Because what we're going to have happen is you'll be able to see now, as I started to say before, I, as president, am going to invest that $600 billion we spend in government contracts only on those things that, in fact, also are not only made in America, but building an infrastructure that's clean and new. And what we have to do is focus on the transmission of energy across the country from areas relating to solar and wind. The reason is that that has not been mastered yet. I've met a lot of people in Silicon Valley. The battery technology is increasing significantly, so you're going to be able to have, for example, solar on your home and a battery the size this by this, as I'm showing you here, in your basement. So when the sun doesn't shine for 5 days, you still have enough energy. So we're making significant progress. The other thing we're going to do is provide an awful lot of work. It's estimated to put close to 1 million people to work by weatherizing 4 million buildings and 2 million homes, because we'll save tons and tons of energy, or like billions of barrels of energy over time, and at the same time provide significant employment and a good union wages, prevailing wages.
Let me stick on fracking for a second. You said you don't want to ban fracking. As you know, it's an important issue here in Pennsylvania. Not everyone buys your denial. A member of the Boilermakers Local 154, Sean Stepney, was quoted in the New York Times today saying, "You can't have it both ways." He says you can't meet your goal to end fossil fuels without ending fracking. What do you say to people like Sean who doubt your denial because they think...
Bon, ça reste des bonnes questions en restant. La fille de NBC était quand même plus... Ben, les deux étaient vraiment plus fâchés un après l'autre. Là, le gars, même s'il le met sur le spot, c'est plus civilisé. C'est pas nécessairement parce que c'est arrangé avec le gars des vues puis qu'il y a du favoritisme. C'est juste de même que ça devrait être des discussions, poser des questions. Il n'y a pas de raison d'être fâché contre les personnes. Oh, sorry about that. I just went on full French. So, for you, Ali,
So are you for it or against it? You say you're
what I
not
said
for
is,
it, but in your website it says you call it a crucial framework.
even though Stephanopoulos, I think that's his name.
My deal is a crucial framework.
Yeah, Stephanopoulos is asking really hard questions on Biden right now, especially on his change of view on fracking and how no one is buying really that he's not against fracking. This is how a debate or a questioning or discussion should take place between people that don't necessarily have the same opinions. In calm, very respectful, no attacks or anything like that. And it doesn't even mean that it's favoritism. Whereas on the NBC one, we could clearly see the tension between Trump and the moderator. So, yeah, this is much more civilized.
Take out the methane and use it as fertilizer and make a lot of money doing it. For example, right now down in people, when I say that, they wonder what I'm talking about. The biggest carbon sink in the world is the Amazon. More carbon absorbed from the air, diminishing global warming in the Amazon than all the carbon emitted on a yearly basis from the United States of America, from all vehicles and all means. So we have to use our imaginations. We have to move in the direction as well, providing for electric vehicles.
Yeah, that's on land, because I think the oceans with all the algae is taking much more CO2 than carbon than the Amazon.
But we're lagging. I mean, we're not investing. We're not doing any of the research.
Got to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
How long is this taking place? Are they back on for Trump? Makes appeal.
Refers to women in the suburbs. Many women may not want to be
Oh wow, Biden is going for more than 1 hour though. It was supposed to end at 7 minutes and they're still going. Is something up? ABC Biden town hall schedule? I guess.
A group that he had done very well with 4 years ago and is also lagging there. So this is a tough battle for the president, and it's part of why we see him so aggressively on
the 90-minute special. Okay, so full 30 minutes more.
Kelly, the president also praising Judge Barrett's performance in the Supreme Court confirmation hearings this week. Here he is on that.
How good is Amy? How good
is Amy? No one knows her. Come on.
It's happening. They said he should not be able to do this. I said, why? I'm in my 4th year. She's been flawless. She hasn't made a mistake. She's toying with those Democrat evil people. They're evil.
You see, the use of the word evil while only speaking about QAnon and all they are against pedophiles. Like, everyone is against pedophiles, but always using the word evils and terms related to hell, Satanism, that really rubs it in a good place, the QAnon people out there. So whatever he said about I don't know them, I know they're against pedophiles and things like that, he knows exactly who they are and what they want here. So just keeping say the evil Democrats is I think it's rewarding for him, or at least for the 40% voter base he already has. This is very good for votes he already has. So yeah,
had the opportunity to do now 3 of these nominations to the court. The scheduling at this point looks like, if all goes as planned in the Senate, a final vote on her confirmation would come right before the election. And one of the pluses for the White House is there were no big surprises. With the Kavanaugh confirmation, there was a lot of surprise and all of it controversial. With Amy Coney Barrett, she answered all of the questions, at least she provided answers. They may not have been satisfactory to Democrats, but she did not cause any controversy to erupt, and many people thought she seemed accessible and intelligent and capable. And so in many ways, her performance as a nominee has been a help to the White House. And certainly people have different views on where she may fall in shifting the court to the conservative side, but that's something that President Trump said he would do and is trying to do it with her nomination.
Kelly, the president has a town hall tonight on NBC News, moderated by our colleague Savannah Guthrie. Dr. Fauci says the president is not a threat to transmit the virus. In spite of that, what safety precautions will there be tonight?
Well, there will be social distancing and testing done for all the people who are participating. And what we've been told by the White House physicians and then an independent review.
So, yeah, I'm just going to put it that on mute. Switch off to my intermission screen. Ok. C'était vraiment plus agressif là avec. Ouais. C'était comme. Tu l'écoutes pour le show au même titre que t'écoutes genre OD pour les chicanes. Là. Pour les Québécois qui sont encore présents. Je vais pouvoir fermer ce stream là. On va pouvoir agrandir lui. Real voter question. Real voters. ABCU a seul besoin de l'écrire. Real voters. Oh, même mon timing est parfait.
Welcome back to our town hall with former Vice President Joe Biden. The next question comes from Mark Hoffman, Center Valley,
Yo, you're back.
Conservative, who voted for Trump in 2016.
Oh, il a voté pour Trump.
Pennsylvania, Mr. Vice President.
Good to be back home. I'm from Pennsylvania.
Yes, I know. Scranton, right?
Yep.
So, peace is breaking out all over the world. Our troops are coming home. Serbia is talking to Kosovo. And the Arabs and Israelis are talking peace, which I believe is a modern-day miracle, what's going on. Does President Trump's foreign policy deserve some credit?
A little, but not a whole lot. We find ourselves in a position where we're more isolated in the world than we've ever been. Our allies are our goat alone. America first has made America alone. You have Iran closer to having enough nuclear material to build a bomb. North Korea has more bombs and missiles available to it. We find ourselves where our NATO allies are publicly saying they can't count on us. We're in a situation as well where in the Far East,
La liste qui fait boum 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 boum.
In the Western Pacific, where we're isolated as well. You
Un peu
have Japan and South Korea at odds with one another. China is making moves. So I would say we find ourselves less secure than we've been. I do compliment the president on the deal with Israel recently, but if you take a look, we're not very well trusted around the world. When 17 major nations in the world were asked who they trust more, who's the better leader, and the president came in behind both the national survey, international survey, both behind Putin as well as Xi. And look what Putin's doing. You know, you have Americans, bounties on American military's heads in Afghanistan. There are more people there now, by the way, than when we left in Afghanistan. And we find ourselves in a situation where he's talked to Putin 6 times, hadn't said a word to him. And NATO is on the risk of beginning to crack because they doubt our concern, whether we're there. You see what's happening in everything from Belarus to Poland to Hungary.
Ah, Belarus, j'ai quasiment l'impression que c'est ça qui va arriver aux États-Unis. C'est une pratique.
As well as this president embraces all the thugs in the world. I mean, he's best friends with the leader of North Korea, sending love letters. He doesn't take on Putin in any way, and he is just he's learned the art of the steal from the art of the deal by Xi in China. So I would respectfully suggest no, there is no plan, no coherent plan for foreign policy. You know, we've always ruled. We've been most effective as a world leader, in my humble opinion. Not just by the
il est comme Matt d'entendre tout ça, genre. Il croit pas que. Comme dans le film, là, où est-ce que, tu sais, il y a un débat entre 3 personnes. Puis, si Alec Baldwin, qui est au centre, c'est pas lui, c'est un autre gars qui est au centre. Puis, la fin demande pourquoi les États-Unis, c'est un pays au monde. Les deux s'en vont pour dire de quoi, puis lui, il dit, on l'est pas. Puis, il commence à te dire pourquoi.
I mean, it's not about the president per se, it's about the nation and the lack of respect that's shown to us.
I want to get one more question in this segment, and it comes from Mika Hack. She's from State College, Pennsylvania. This is your first presidential election that you're voting.
Yes.
Hi, Mika, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm the proud mom of 2 girls, 8 and 10. My youngest daughter is transgender. The Trump administration has attacked the rights of transgender people, banning them from military service, weakening non-discrimination protections, and even removing the word transgender from some government websites. How will you, as president, reverse this dangerous and discriminatory agenda and ensure that the lives and rights of LGBTQ people are protected under U.S. law?
I will flat out just change the law. Eliminate those executive orders, number one. You may recall, I'm the guy who said, I was raised by a man who, I remember I was being dropped off. My dad was a high school educated, well-read man who was a really decent guy, and I was being dropped off to get an application in the center of our city, Wilmington, Delaware, the corporate capital of the world at the time. And these 2 men, I'm getting out to get an application to be a lifeguard in the African-American community because there was a big swimming pool complex. And these 2 men, well-dressed, leaned up and hugged one another and kissed one another. And I'm getting out of the car at the light, and I turned to my dad. My dad looked at me and said, Joey, it's simple. They love each other. The idea that an 8-year-old child or a 10-year-old child decides, you know, I decided I want to be transgender. That's what I think I'd like to be. It'll make my life a lot easier. There should be 0 discrimination. And what's happening is too many transgender women of color are being murdered. They're being murdered. I mean, I think it's up to now 17. Don't hold me to that number, but it's higher now.
Yeah.
And that's just this year. And so I promise you, there is no reason to suggest that there should be any right denied your daughter or daughters, whichever, if 1 or 2, one, your daughter, that your other daughter has a right to be and do. None, 0. And by the way, my son Beau passed away, was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. He was the guy who got the first transgender law passed in the state of Delaware, and because of a young man who became a woman who worked for him in the Attorney General's office.
We've got one more segment coming up. Thank you.
And I'm proud of
back.
Ok. Ouais, je vais mettre ça comme ça. Je vais mettre intermission. Oh, yeah. Ah ouais, le clip de ce film-là, là, je me souviens plus, là. Attends. On va vous chercher ça. Why is America greatest country in the world? The newsroom. C'est de là, attends, ça s'en vient. Non. Ouais, c'était clip-là. Mais je peux juste pas l'utiliser.
In one sentence or less, you know what I mean. Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Blah.
Makes America the greatest. Lewis and Sharon said it. Diversity and opportunity and freedom.
Ah, bref, vous voulez voir ça, là. Pas envie de me faire strike. Mais ouais, dans le film de Newsroom, là, c'est comme... Tout un clip, là. On va attendre que les annonces passent. Ah. On a la petite musique d'ambiance. Un peu de synthwave, relax, mou. Ah, mon téléphone est là-bas. Je reviens 2 secondes, je vais chercher mon téléphone le temps que la pub finisse. Je me sens tellement douillet. Oh, ça fait du bien.
2020. Here again, George Stephanopoulos.
Here again.
And welcome back to our town hall with former Vice President Joe Biden. The next question comes from Keenan Wilson, Narberth, Pennsylvania, Democrat.
Good evening. You say that you committed to entering this race after the events of Charlottesville in 2017. I assume that that feeling that prompted you to run will not go away once the results are determined. So, hypothetically, if you lose, how will you use your platform to urge President Donald Trump and those rallying behind him towards the ideals of a more perfect union?
Well, to be very honest with you, I think that's very hard. He is not, things have not lent themselves to him learning from what's happened, what's gone before. And instead of being chastened by being one of the few presidents, the only president to be impeached and then have a member of his own party vote to expel him. It emboldened him. So, but what I will do, hopefully I'll go back to being a professor at the University of Pennsylvania and making the case that I've been made and at the Biden Institute at the University of Delaware, focusing on these same issues relating to what constitutes decency and honor in this country. It's just a thing that got me involved in public life to begin with. As a kid, I moved from Scranton, where there were no African Americans, and moved down to Claymont, Delaware, and in Delaware we have the 8th largest black population as a percent of population. It was an epiphany for me, seeing what was going on, and I got deeply involved. I'm no great shakes. I don't mean I wasn't John Lewis. I don't mean to imply that, but it's the thing that's motivated. My dad used to have an expression, for real. He said, everyone's entitled to be treated with dignity. Everybody. And it was real. Everybody is. And so whether I'm a defeated candidate for president back teaching or I'm elected president, it is a major element of everything that I'm about. Because it reflects who we are as a nation. And it's what makes us every single solitary generation.
Il essaie de ce petit bout-là, ils disent pas au début du spectacle parce que ça va donner l'impression aux gens qu'à chaque fois qu'il dira pas, c'est automatiquement pas vrai, tu sais. Tandis que si tu le dis à la fin, t'apportes pas l'attention aux gens sur ça. Beaucoup moins, là, tu sais. Les gens vont l'avoir un peu oublié. Fait qu'il fasse ça dans les dernières 5 minutes, c'est bon.
You will not hear me race baiting, you will not hear me dividing, you'll hear me trying to unify. And unify with, bring people together. When I said I was running because I wanted to unify the country, people said, well, they were the old days. We better be able to do it again. We better be able to do it again.
Mr. Vice President, if you lose, what will that say to you about where America is today?
Well, it could say that I'm a lousy candidate and I didn't do a good job. But I think, I hope that it doesn't say that we are as racially, ethnically, and religiously at odds with one another as it appears the president wants us to be. Usually, you know, the president's, in my view, with all due respect, has been divide and conquer. The way he does better if he splits us. There's division. And I think people need hope. I think, look, George, I've never been more optimistic about the prospects for this country than I am today, and I really mean that. I think the people are ready, they understand what's at stake, and it's not about Democrat or Republican. If I get elected, you know, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I'm going to take care of those who voted against me as well as those who voted for me, for real. That's what presidents do. We got to heal this nation, because we have the greatest opportunity of any country in the world to own the 21st century, and we can't do it divided.
One more break, we'll be right back.
C'est juste ça qu'ils font, des breaks.
Welcome to Disney Plus.
Une niaise? Une question, un break, une question, un break. Tu vois, quand t'as les 10 minutes de questions, là. Voyons, bat, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Bon, ouais, pas content de ça, moi. Ouais, je pense qu'on a la réplique, moi. Yeah. Ouais. Ça va être un petit stream, au moins ça a été cool. Mais il y a complètement des vibes différentes, là, ça me... Wow. Qu'est-ce qu'elle dit, Marie-Monde Denis? Yes. Mauvais compte, mauvais compte, mauvais compte. Aïe, 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 aïe. Mais les affaires, il y a à soir. Ok. Ils sont bien longs les annonces pour vrai. Bon.
And we are wrapping up our town hall with former Vice President Joe Biden. Mr. Vice President, as you know, President Trump had a town hall meeting tonight as well. During that town hall meeting, he was asked several times whether he took a COVID test the day of your last debate. You're supposed to have another debate a week from tonight. Just two quick questions. Do you expect that debate to happen? Will you demand that President Trump take a test that day and that it be negative before you debate?
Yeah, by the way, before I came up here, I took another test. I've been taking it every day, the deep test, you know, the one they go in both. And because I wanted to be able to, if I had not passed that test, I didn't want to come here and not, expose anybody. And I just think it's just decency to be able to determine whether or not you are you're clear. And it's not. I'm less concerned about me than the people, the guys at the cameras, the people working in you know, the Secret Service guys you drive up with, all those people. And so yes, I believe he will do that. Look, I'm going to abide by what the commission rules call for. I was prepared to debate him remotely, which was supposed to happen, and he said he wouldn't do that. You know, a virtual debate, or town hall. He didn't want to do that. I didn't set those rules. The commission set the rules. So whatever rules they set, and I'm confident that the Cleveland Clinic is the one overseeing it. I think they're going to not let happen what happened last time. They're going to demand that it's safe.
But you expect to be there?
Oh, I expect to be there.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for your time tonight. Thank all the questioners here. It was really terrific questions. I think you did a service to our democracy tonight. Thank you very much. I want to go back to my colleague David, and you're in New York.
All right, George, thank you. So there you have it, the ABC News Town Hall with former Vice President
Joe
Biden.
Ben regarde, ça va être assez pour moi aussi. On regardait quasiment plus pour Trump qu'autre chose, de voir comment ça allait se passer. Ça a agi pas mal comme on s'y attendait. C'était tellement marqué comme différence entre les deux. Là. Moi, ça me marque, ça me surpris, là, vraiment. Fait que, regarde, tout le monde, on va se revoir bientôt. Stream Gaming du lundi. Apportez votre propre débat, épisode de mercredi prochain. Donc, on se revoit. Puis même après ça, le jeudi suivant, dans une semaine, je vais faire la même chose que j'ai fait ce soir, mais pour le dernier débat présidentiel. Fait que, see ya tout le monde!